In the last video, we were talking about biologics and working in the pharmaceutical industry. I'm probably going to come in contact with some type of biologics at some point in time. Now, if this was straight up pharma production where we're just taking raw ingredients, mixing, blending, pressing into tablets, maybe not so much. But if I'm actually working in the biopharmaceutical field, the bio part stands for, guess what? Biology and biologics. So I'm probably going to be coming in contact with those types of material at some point in time. I could be coming in contact with the products that those materials have made, or I could be coming in contact with the actual material itself, depending on where I fall in the manufacturing line. So in the last video, we were talking about biological safety cabinets, BSCs, and the BSCs are going to be there. They're going to be in working laboratory settings, especially if these are the types of material that I have to work with on a daily basis. They are different than fume hoods. Don't be tricky off of Canvas, Tracy. Well, don't blame me because I don't write the questions. It's actually a complete program that's written by state leaders. So you can blame them, not me, for a change. But these are enclosed, ventilated, filtered workspaces. We said that they are often coming with UV lights. That adds an extra layer of protection to kill out any of the germs and microbes that still might be left behind because you did a really dirty, crappy job trying to clean up after yourself when you were using these biological materials. Next up, what we're going to continue on here with the next video, and that will probably round out this first half of the lecture module, are these administrative controls that are going to be in place, especially in the world of biopharmaceutical. So workers who use infectious materials, they have to follow SOPs. We keep saying this over and over and over. Again, I sound like a broken record. So I guess no matter what someone asks you, you're going to always say, there's an SOP for that. Oh, there's an SOP for that. Oh, there's an SOP for that. So, just kind of answer it that way. Just keep that in mind. There's an SOP for everything, people. All right, probably even, I'm surprised they don't give us an SOP on how to use the bathroom and how to wipe the appropriate way. But, actually, honestly, now that I think about it, I think some people probably do need an SOP on how to use the bathroom and wipe the proper way. All right, so workers who use these materials, they've got to follow proper SOPs. These SOPs are going to basically target on how to safely handle the material because, again, these materials are a little bit different than straight up chemical reagents and things that we would use elsewhere. So we got to treat them a different way. We have to handle them a different way. We've got to have different PPE in order to utilize these things. So all of that requires education and all of that requires training. Next, what engineering and admin controls are in place to control the hazard? Because those are hazards, folks. We are working with hazardous materials. So if they are going to infect me in some form or fashion or contaminate me in some form or fashion, we've got to make sure that those SOPs and that the facility is designed to prevent these major mistakes from happening. We do not want our workplace sick, and we do not want the spread of diseases or infections. Next, what personal protective equipment workers need to wear. So this is our PPE description, and we've already said, or I've said at least a few times now, PPE on the biological side of the house is going to be different than the PPE on the chemical laboratory side of the house. They are different because it's different types of material that we are working with. So if I'm on the manufacturing side and I am working on a manufacturing line that utilizes these biologics, then I'm going to suit up in a different way than maybe if I was working in a manufacturing line that was not using those biologics. Now, we still want to keep stuff clean. We got to make sure that still things stay pure with no contamination. Absolutely. But the mentality here has to slightly be different based on the material that we're working with. Next, when and how to decontaminate or deactivate the material. So we're going to be using stuff, and then at some point in time, we're going to be done with it. So when we're done with it, how do we decontaminate everything that has came in contact with? And then how do we make sure that that stuff is dead and killed? So that is deactivate. So if I'm working with, let's say, E. coli, I've got E. coli in a big old vat and we've allowed it to kind of do its thing in this big, huge vat, then I'm going to transfer that material out of that vat at some point in time. What happens to the vat? We need to decontaminate that vat and we need to get it ready for the next round of the manufacturing that needs to take place. So there's going to be SOPs for that, but those are extra steps that I'm going to have to take to make sure that all of that biological type of material is gone and out of there. Once we get it out, what do we do with it? It probably doesn't need to continue down the chain. So if I get it out of that vat and I separate it from the good stuff, then what do we do with all of this maybe E. coli that's still left around, or this biomass that's still left around? Where do we get rid of it? How do we dispose it? How do we deactivate it to make sure that it is safe? So again, these are things that we're going to have to talk about in the course, because that is what the BioWorks course will focus on. It does focus on the biological aspect of pharmaceutical medication and production. And then next, how to properly dispose. So once we deactivate it, how do we get rid of it? Do we just dump it down the drain? No, probably not. There's actually extra steps that's got to go through before we are able to do something like that. Biosafety level tags are always going to be in these areas that involve that type of material. So you're going to see some signage, probably things on doors, very big posters and those types of things to let you know what you're getting ready to walk into. So with this particular safety level tag, you're seeing level 2, and there's got to be a biohazard agent. So we got to have a name of some form and fashion. So people are going to know what's behind those closed doors. Like, what are those people working with? Should I go into that room? Give me some insight about what's going on, right? Labeling and signage is a thing, and we already talked about the importance of signage and labeling. So this is one of those things that needs to go on in a workplace and a job environment. Next, it says special procedures for entry. So it gives me a little bit of room here to write something to let me know what I should be doing before I go into those work areas. Building number, room number, the date that's posted, and then down here at the very bottom, it looks like a notice, entry or advice, and then emergency, and then another emergency. So it gives me some numbers to call, some buildings and rooms where they're located, their actual phone numbers and cell phone numbers if you need to get in contact with someone at some point in time. So these are going to be posted on the doors that lead into those areas that work with BSL 1, 2, 3, and 4. They are letting you know what is there. They're letting you know how bad those agents might be, so that way you can prepare accordingly, or maybe not even enter the room if that is something that you should not be messing with or meddling in. So it provides control, it provides organization, but it also completely kind of identifies these areas that are of a utmost concern with the manufacturing group. Biological safety personnel protective equipment. This is going to be our biosafety PPE, and what you're seeing in the picture are typically, again, World War Z, zombie apocalypse. This is kind of what's going on. We are suiting up from head to toe with respirators if needed, depending on the areas that we are working in. So this is not like a lab coat and gloves and safety glasses. This goes far and above that PPE level, and it's because of the nature of the material that we might be encountering or working with at that particular stage of the manufacturing line. So it's going to include safety glasses, absolutely. It's going to include gloves, sure, absolutely. But it's going to include other things that we normally don't see just on the traditional laboratory side of the house, where we're just working with straight up chemicals and reagents and no really kind of biological type of material. At the same time, you also have to understand that this PPE is happening on the manufacturing line a lot of the times. So once more, we are talking about bulk material. So very large quantities of things that I'm going to be using, that I'm going to be coming in contact with. And of course, just with that concept alone, I probably need to be doing something a little bit different with my PPE versus little tiny quantity amounts that I might see in the laboratory environment. All right. So, with that said, this is going to give you an idea of some of the laws and regulations and some of the ways that these companies are going to be organized and why they enforce what they do enforce, the way that they enforce it in these manufacturing facilities. Again, you might be chemical technology side of the house and you might be going on the laboratory production side. If so, great, then your job is going to be a little bit different. Your job is going to be just proving the identity and the purity of the raw ingredients and the products that the manufacturing group makes. So your role is a little bit different. Your rules and regulations are going to fall under a different category. And then if you're on the manufacturing side, which could maybe be our bioprocessing degree, then your role is slightly different again. So you're working with bulk materials, you're working with more controlled types of things. Your PPE is going to be a little different. Your mentality is going to be a little different. And then you're going to be making these products that people are going to take. So you need to take pride in your work, but you also need to make sure that you're doing it in a safe and effective way. So more about all of this stuff a little bit later. Of course, it's all going to be kind of rushing back here and there in different lecture modules throughout the time that you're in the course with me. And this is just really the first half of module number 2. So in the second half of module number 2, we're going to focus on this concept of ergonomics. So there is a different type of safety that we need to keep in mind, and this is going to be just physical labor safety. What we've talked about so far is really OSHA standards, keeping me safe, generally speaking, and then lab standards and manufacturing standards, biological standards that are going to go on in the biopharma kind of network mentality that I need to have when I'm working in these spaces. But that is only part of the problem. The other part of the problem is ergonomics. So ergonomics is the idea that I want to make sure that I treat my body good. Physically, I want to be able to make sure I'm lifting things the proper way, I'm mixing things the proper way, I'm not doing a repetitive task over and over and over and over and over so much throughout the day that it's going to send me maybe into a complication or send me to a hospital over some type of, poor posture and those types of things. So ergonomics is where we're going to keep or we're going to pick up. That is going to start our second half of the module. So that way it'll give you an idea of what you're going to see on the first half of the quiz/test and what's going to show up on the second half of the quiz/test. So with that said, maybe take a break, study your lecture notes so far, kind of relate that information to what you're going to see here in the Canvas module, and then pick back up after you feel really comfortable with that and after you tackle that first half. So with that said, I'll see you again. I don't know when, but I'll see you again. That needs to be a song if it's not already.